Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Two Blokes podcast. Today, we are truly only two blokes. I'm Taz, and I'm here with me mate, DeadDuck. And for this episode, I wanted to talk about my own concerns over the men's rights movement, its real members, and all the attention being paid to everyone else. Please pull up a stump and join us. So, as I mentioned, I'd like to kick things off today and express some concern I have over this kind of long-standing confusion between what our movement is really all about and what it intends, and all of the things out there that pretend to be, either part of us or that pretend to come from us, have nothing to do with us, and basically sugarcoat a lot of the discussion that they put out there with either this expressed or implied support for men, especially young men. And a lot of it centers around things like dating and, career guidance, and just basically presenting young men with a quote solution to the problems that they face. And as I mentioned earlier, some of the things that they say have kind of a hollow echo of the kinds of things that are discussed within, at least from within our movement. Things like pair bonding, dating, relationships between men and women, all of that. Although, they're very skittish about things like actual family court injustice and disparities. Sometimes some of these players will bring it up, but then, they will turn right around and basically blame and point the finger, at mostly ordinary women, who, quite frankly, a lot of ordinary women are just as much in the dark as most ordinary young men. They really, if you press them for, to identify these things as a problem and to identify a solution, you're not going to get anything back because they don't know. They're being prevented from ever even trying to figure it out. But instead, they get the red pill, or pickup artist, or at very worst, the incel rhetoric and ideology, that basically makes a bad situation much, much worse. And they do it because it's lucrative. They make money, and on the one hand, it makes it a little more difficult to, I guess, just completely disavow and reject them, at least for some people in our movement, because, as I say, they do make a point of occasionally saying the same kinds of things that we do, at least about the status quo. But the truth is that they don't really offer a solution. They just want you to buy their book, or sign up to their seminar or their OnlyFans or their Patreon. It's the typical follow me and, I will lead you to happiness. And, there's no mention of really correcting these problems, but basically, just these really shallow, really short-term workarounds, for short-term gratification. and short-term sense of entitlement and aggrievement. And like I said, they're the ones getting all the attention, and I've really been wondering why. And I think DeadDuck and I, want to talk about that and kind of hash it out, and see what might be done about it. So, Dead, what do you think?
Well, we obviously were just speaking about this off stream, but part of it is unfortunately these people are extremely charismatic. It's I say extremely that they have an amount of charisma that maybe us older farts don't necessarily have. Um, we can come with all the facts, we can come with all the solutions, but at the end of the day, if we don't capture people's imaginations, they're not going to listen to us. And some woman who her brand is kicking through her bathroom door and speaking into a mirror while recording herself on a mobile phone and making silly noises and using catchphrases and what have you is going to garner attention. And it's the same with you know just Pearly Things or the Whatever podcast or Fresh and Fit and all these guys. They have a level of charisma. There's some of the stuff they say we know to be true. My biggest problem with a lot of them is it's not about the issues, it's not about solving anything, it's about making their adversaries look like clowns. Now, admittedly, quite often, the people they have on as adversaries do a very, very good job of making themselves look like clowns. They come up with some absolute nonsense. And occasionally, the conversations about things like a woman's body count, for example. My thing is, I would just turn around to young women and say, look, if you want to go sleep around, crack on. It's not going to bother me. I'm too old for that nonsense anyway. However, you cannot expect a young man to want to have a relationship with you necessarily. That's, that's next level entitlement. And to that degree, these podcasts do occasionally get that kind of thing right. And a lot of it is biological essentialism. It's um, pretty full on conservatism and everything else. But again, it's just not fixing the issues, is it? It's not dealing with anything. And unfortunately, Taz, you and I, as a you know, as a couple of older guys, are not equipped to compete with these guys. I'm sure people have listened to these conversations and say, yes, the conversations are very, very good, but they're also quite dry. So, yes, we can listen to them, and yes, we agree with what's being said, but it's not as fun, exciting, maybe, as one of these so-called red pill podcasts, which are really, you've just got to take them as a form of entertainment. They're not going to change the world anytime soon. And I'd rather they weren't around. I certainly don't want them involved with the men's rights movement. The question is, how do we get the messages out there that we want to get out there? How do we get more people to listen and pay attention?
Right.
And compete with these guys without becoming them.
Yeah. Yeah. One of our cohort in an earlier meeting today, was kind of edging toward that, I guess, that idea that, we can clean it up a little bit and yet still make it, entertaining and kind of, gotcha oriented and take on some of the trappings of the opposition here. You know, and from my perspective, like I said, you know, if I thought it would work, I wouldn't try to do it myself because I've got no talent for it, you know, and I don't care to acquire the talent for it. You know, I I have, you know, a few tattered shreds of dignity and humanity left, and I'm not giving them up, you know. uh, but at the same time, you know, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, that the same things that are being, you know, presented to these really dim-witted, you know, and over entitled and inexperienced controlled opposition on shows like At Whatever, you know, or Just Pearly Things or Fresh and Fit, any of them, you know, like I said, you know, that doesn't present anyone with a solution, that that doesn't involve, you know, undermining and humiliating and I don't know, you know, degrading. I'll even use that word, degrading, you know, anyone that doesn't see it the way they do.
Mm.
Now, of course, you know, the only expected response to that is a lot of blowback, you know,
Yeah.
because some of the people that they're, you know, that they claim to be challenging, they are not dim-witted, right? And they are not uh, given, you know, they're not given to allowing themselves to being humiliated, you know, or degraded, right? And that makes them dangerous, right? And makes them, you know, if they started out radical, it makes them more radical, you know. And it does nothing but widen that divide, you know, that no, the one thing all the regular people, you know, the consumers of this, the one thing they can all agree on is, you know, things are bad now and there's just too much polarization, you know, between these two camps. But the one thing about, you know, building a bridge, I guess, is it's, you know, as you say, it's very dry work. You
Yeah.
know, it's not the kind of thing that's fun, you know. And I worry when we, on the one hand, you know, we don't concede that this issue is going to be solved in a fun way, because it's not, you know. But on the other hand, you know, that the only ones even willing to broach that, you know, conversation are folks like us, you know. And I freely admit, you know, I'm not entertaining. I don't intend to be, right? And I'm not charismatic, at least not in this way, you know. And because of that, you know, it's like my personal choices are either, you know, sacrifice my own like commission to myself in favor of being more charismatic, you know, and more entertaining, you know, or basically, you know, find someone who can, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there are some people plenty of people that can be charismatic, you know, and be entertaining, right, without selling their soul,
Yeah.
you know. They're just not with us right now.
No.
And I would like for at least some of them to be with us, you know, because I think we're, you know, a worthy cause, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not going to be that person, you know. I'm going to be, you know, you also, whether you like it or not, I don't like it much, you know. We're going to be the ones, you know, that that have to deal with people once they make their way over here,
Yeah.
and have to really be honest with them, right? And be able to tell them, look, a lot of this is grunt work,
Yeah.
and a lot of this requires patience that nobody has ever allowed you to develop, and compassion and honesty and humility, when you've grown up in a world that treats those things like, uh, like they're radioactive,
Mm.
and they do. I mean, they conversations that I have, young men and young women that, finally do make their way over here because it's just, so bad out there, then I'm the poor unfortunate that has to tell them, yeah, making this right and making this culture and this society functional again, is going to require these things that currently scare the hell out of you.
Mm.
And, I mean, they don't scare me, but I kind of already lost everything. But, if I tell you, young man or young lady, that you have to learn to forgive your enemies, right? You have to learn to be patient and compassionate with people that drive you right over the falls, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And, and that you have to become uh, uh, empathetic, and like I said, just patient, willing to make a connection with someone that currently, say, you've been taught to see them as an enemy and taught to see them as a curse, like they're poison,
Mm.
whether it's the cohort of young men or the cohort of young women.
Mm.
And like I said, for quite some time now, there's been an active effort out there, to teach young men to be distrustful and resentful toward women and vice versa.
Yeah.
The same could be said, for the issues with race. If different races of people are not taught to mistrust and resent each other, when there are problems, they are likely to work together to solve them.
Yeah.
And if there are problems, but they, fear and resent each other, all they're going to do is, go at each other. These problems are going to still be there.
Mm.
And I like, I look at the issues of race and I say, yeah, these are systems of disparity and, unaccountability that are way overdue to being addressed. And there is one way to get them addressed, and that's all together.
Mm-hmm.
But, those things really have been part of civilization for a long time, and they do tend to work themselves out if they're allowed to do so.
Yeah.
But this conflict, this one is very new, right? It's unprecedented in the history of modern humans, right? For the first time ever, it's boys against the girls, okay? And in all of the social and cultural conflicts that have ever come before, it was never like that. Right?
Mm.
So this is very unfamiliar territory, right? And if the best we can do, like I said, is clown each other, right? And deliver gotchas to each other, we've already lost. I
Yeah.
mean that conflict is over and we all lost.
Yeah.
But if we can do better than that, even if it takes like I said, being more entertaining, being less dry, and being more charismatic, I'm fine with that. It's just that
Mm-hmm.
it's not me because I'm not that guy, right?
No,
But
neither am I.
it don't have to be.
No.
There's nothing about our movement that says, the old guard and the you know the older fellas, have to call all the shots. I'm really not interested in that.
No,
Yeah.
as long as the new guard are willing to learn a few lessons, then whatever. But these sort of podcasts and things, they wouldn't be so bad if they were tackling actual issues and suggesting actual solutions, as you say, rather than trying to deliver gotchas.
Right.
There was one of them I saw the other day had an ex-male um, high-class escort and um, star of adult entertainment films on there, and he was talking about, he's got multiple partners and everything else. And
Mhm.
okay, yeah, if that works for you, then fine, so be it. It's your life at the end of the day. But ultimately, those kind of things very rarely work long term.
Right.
So,
Right.
and there's a level of hypocrisy in that, because they were saying, oh, as women, you shouldn't be doing this kind of stuff. Well, just because you're some 6 foot plus guy doesn't mean you can get away with it either. And like, I don't want anyone to sit there thinking this is sour grapes or anything, because it ain't.
Right.
That's really not a life that interests me in any way, shape, or form.
Mm-mm.
And you know, all of these girls that they have on these programs or on these podcasts, you can look at them and say, yeah, all right, they're attractive enough.
Right.
And you've got them. Oh, how do you rate yourselves? I mean, this is the other thing. Unfortunately, these young women have been told, you're a queen, a princess, whatever.
Right.
And I'm as guilty of it as anyone with my own daughter. Um, she's my little princess.
Sure.
But I certainly don't sit there and tell her, oh, you're a 10 out of 10, you're perfect and everything else, because
Right.
what what is she going to take out into the world
Right.
for any potential partner,
Right.
be it male or female? At the moment, we don't know with
Right.
her. So if I go around telling her she's utterly perfect, what is she going to do the first time somebody says that you've got this wrong with you? There's
Yeah.
this there's this about you that I don't like, and it's a problem.
Right.
She's gonna go absolutely shit.
Right.
You
And
know,
rightly so. I mean,
yeah,
it's a function of, that kind of I mean, not in your case. I'm sure you account for it with her, just like with your son. But
yeah,
for the parents, certainly the fathers, that fail at parenting in that way, there I watch the results on podcasts like Just Pearly or, Fresh and
hmm
Fit when I used to watch it before they completely went off the stage, and a few other places. And I look at them and say, I know why you're like this, right?
mm,
I know what happened to you.
mm,
And, you, uh, barring, an unforeseen intervention, you're kind of doomed. you
yeah,
know this is your life now and from now on.
hmm
And when the clock runs out, I mean, let's face it, for what they expect out of life and relationships, there's a clock. you
yep,
know and it's that, I guess, I can't get too mad, no matter. In fact, the more outrageous they are, the less angry I am at them. Because again, I just look at that and say, I know whose fault that is.
yeah, and
I know who screwed up, and it
yeah,
ain't her. You know.
no, it's you know, mum and dad didn't sit their daughter down and say, look, love, we love you with every
Right,
fiber of our being,
right,
but you will
right,
never be truly perfect. It's impossible.
right,
You know, you if you are physically attractive, your looks will only last a certain amount of time, whether you're a man or a woman.
right,
you might grow into your looks, by which I mean the older you get, the more physically attractive you become.
sure, that happens too,
Yeah,
regularly.
yes.
But
And
more importantly, whether it does or it doesn't, um, you know,
have a bit of humility about you.
right,
For God's, you know,
the delusion of perfection is a fate worse than death,
yes.
because you have to keep living because, you keep wanting to, right?
Mm,
And, the wanting to live and the wanting to flourish just becomes bitterness and resentment at, uh, the appearance that everyone else is not going along with the program.
yeah. I
And said, I mean, sometimes it really makes me feel bad, and like honestly bad, for, like women on TikTok and women on some areas of places like Twitch and whatever, where they're just so, dead set on the idea that, um, their lack of a relationship, or lack of satisfaction in a relationship, or lack of satisfaction with their life is everybody else's fault but theirs.
yeah.
And I'm like, same thing, man. It's like I look at that and I'm like, I know exactly how that happened,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And it's like, this sucks, but um like I said, doubling down on it from our side is worthless and dangerous,
Mm,
because it will generate backlash, as it has, you know,
hmm.
um, and it will escalate. When I say
Yeah.
escalate, I mean, more and more absurdity, right?
Yeah.
More and more what you and I would call, just immature silliness. But it
Yes.
it will be bought and paid for as if it was, real time uh, advice,
Yeah.
real time and uh, universally useful, good stuff. You
Yeah.
know, we know better, but we're not the kind of folks that, can make a better idea look that attractive, except to those, I think, that one way or another are already kind of bought in.
Yeah.
I've been following Twitch streamer and YouTuber. Her name is Kyla, but her channel on YouTube is Not So Erudite.
Hmm.
And she's not aware of us that I know of, like really folks like you and me,
Hmm.
but she does a much better job of speaking for us than any of these others do.
Yeah.
And she actively critiques and picks apart programs like Fresh and Fit and Sneeko and Just Pearly. I don't know if she's talked about Chloe yet, but Chloe's kind of on the wane. She's kind of, I think she's exposed now as kind of just a grifter, just a
Hmm.
gun for hire. Um, and that's okay. I mean, these kind of things do come and go. The precursors of the red pill movement were kind of just pickup artists,
Yeah.
right? And even that guy that wrote that book, The Game, I forget his name, but he completely, disavows that whole ideology, and finally admitted, he just wrote it in response to the other book called The Rules, which
Yeah.
was sort of the antithesis of it. Um, and like I said, it's kind of designed, with peaks and valleys, right? Where at one point it's just the flavor of the month and everybody's looking at it and everybody's buying into it like it's the answer to all of life's problems. And 2 years later, it's like they don't even want to talk about it anymore.
Yeah.
I don't
See,
blame them because it's embarrassing. But like I said, that I say that there's opportunity, for somebody, uh, or more somebodies than just a few, to deliver our message and do it in such a way that people will pay attention.
Yeah, I think we really, part of what we need to do also is to explain the difference between being red pilled and this red pill movement that is currently so prevalent on the internet with, just pearly things, whatever, um, fresh and fit, all of these types of people. And being red pilled basically just means we are aware, we know what's going on, we can see what's going on. We don't like what's going on. We would rather do something about it. But this whole red pill ideology thing is toxic as all hell, apart from anything else. And it is the last remnants really of, as you say, Taz, the pickup artist community and things like that, which, you know, we never got on. This whole thing of the manosphere, the red pill communities and the men's rights community never saw eye to eye. We never will, because we don't want that kind of thing getting in the way of this movement and trying to change things for the better. So, I wish these podcasts didn't exist. Unfortunately, they do. They are far better at it than the likes of you and I are. Which is it's a shame. I wish that wasn't the case. But as we said before, what do we do about it? We can talk as old school as we want.
Mhm.
I it's one of those, isn't it? It's
Yeah. Well, in defense of, I guess, at least the well-intentioned aspect of that, movement, is
mm,
that, I hate to say, I hate to use something as trite and cliche as, the concept of a red pill, only as
hmm
opposed to a blue pill, which is
hmm
where it all came from, is only that, um, it's every individual's choice and responsibility, to decide in their own little head and their own little heart, that they want to know how things really are, and what's really going on, or it all of that is too much for them, and they really want to stay in the matrix. They really want to stay blind, right?
hmm
Now, with my own track record and my experiences, on this new track, right? Again, I'm 62 years old, and I've been at this for less than 8 years, you know.
hmm
But from that perspective, you know, you can't get too mad at somebody uh, for taking the blue pill unless they've really lived a good life up to then. You
mm,
know, I mean, for somebody that, just wakes up every day struggling to find a reason to get out of bed, and it's just been like that their whole life, there's a lot of things about the comfort and security of, ignorance that's very
yeah,
appealing and very hard to refuse,
yeah,
very hard to say, nope, I'm gonna do this the hard way, and I'm gonna as you say, I'm gonna be humble enough to admit that, I don't always know what's going on.
mm,
It's not my fault because I was never told, but I'm at least going to start by admitting that, that I have been deluded, right?
Mm,
And then like act accordingly and look for other people, that want the same, right?
mm-hmm.
Um, so for that reason, again, I don't just entirely condemn at least the well-intentioned among them. And maybe, at least to some degree, somebody like Pearlie or um the at whatever guy, or this guy Alex, the playing with fire guy, maybe they really honestly mean well, and they do seem to, you
Mm-hmm.
know. But at the same time, like I said, they call themselves very red pill, but I think the pill got stuck about halfway down, you know. Because they haven't really digested it, you know.
Mm,
Um, they will admit, right, that things are bad, but two
yeah.
things about that, things are not bad, they are much worse. And
Yeah.
the other thing is, it's not all everybody else's fault, right?
No.
And to be honest with you, I wish it was, I do, because if I could just blame somebody else for everything, every struggle I ever had, I would be living a very different life right now. Right?
Yeah.
But I can't, unless I want to lie, right, to
Yeah.
myself and everybody else. And
See,
so, uh, the references to, as you say, biological essentialism, that they have somehow renamed human nature, or male and female nature, right? Nature, we left that perch when we learned how to grow our own food.
mm,
You know? We are very long gone from that, you know. Um,
it's-
we are not designed anymore to live that way. We haven't for a long time,
yeah.
but um,
I mean, there's
you're,
certain bits of the biological essentialism that I think are irrefutable, such as women only have a certain amount of time within which they are able to, if they want to, start a family, whereas men do not have that same issue.
right.
So that's fair comment. If
Right.
somebody says, ladies, you've got to get it all figured out by the time you say 32, for example, that's fair enough comment.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
but at the same time, you want to have, because honestly, like family wise, you do want to have it figured out by
yeah,
that time.
yeah,
But on the other hand, um, you have to follow that up by saying, oh, by the way, you've been specifically prepared to make sure that you do not figure it all out by then.
yeah. And also say to guys, you know, I didn't have a career figured out until I was, God, late 20s, early 30s.
Mm,
It's only now that I'm 40 that I'm settled into a career.
right.
And maybe I had, no, I know maybe about it. I had children far too young and certainly had them with the wrong person. However, you know, could I have had the the working life I now have with
Right.
children that are 10 plus years younger? And the answer is no, not a hope in hell. I'm away 5, even 6 days a week. I'm not at home, right? I sleep in a
Yeah.
tin can. I
Mhm.
eat, I eat what is, basically heavily processed food,
Mhm.
although it's an awful lot better in the UK than it is in the US because, you know,
That's a fact. That is a fact.
um, and I don't get a lot of exercise and all this other crap.
Right.
Is that the life of? It's not much of a life, but it's a career. It's a good income.
Sure.
It gives my children the opportunity to have nice things that they didn't have when I was a lot younger. So it's very much swings and roundabouts. Was it a good idea to have children so young? Probably not. But would I have been much use to them now? Probably not. So,
Right.
we may not have the biological thing, but I do wonder if having children young isn't such a bad thing for guys, and then settling into the more mundane side of life, the career and
Yeah.
everything else. So
Well,
maybe us guys also have a clock that is ticking.
yeah, I think
We
of
should,
sorts, it for different reasons, but kind of with the same outcome.
yeah,
That on the one hand, neither you nor I were properly prepared
no,
to have, children really at any age, but certainly not, with a sense of timing, right?
hmm
Which, if there's an essential component to this, that's one of them, you
yeah,
know. I mean, I'm 62 years old. I haven't been a father. I'm not going to be a father. But if
hmm
suddenly tomorrow morning I woke up and, was just entirely obsessed with the idea of becoming a father, I can promise you that I would not do a good job. And uh, but on the other hand, it's as much because of, the set of choices that I was offered coming
mm,
up, and as much because of what I was never told as what I was told.
hmm
When I talk to young men, about uh, developing properly, and becoming well-rounded and prepared to be grown-up men,
mm,
the ones that have taken it into their own hands, to make sure that they're going to be okay. Unfortunately, the only thing that they focus on is things like, career and material success, and experience with women, and
yeah.
I guess, for lack of a better term, uh, I don't know, alphaness, right? Because
It's
they have been convinced that this is the only way, and
I
it's, again, as much what they were never introduced to, and the things that they were never shown the value of, as the things that they were shown the value of. Because I tell them, I never discount the value of being, materially successful and experienced, and as well suited to your position in society as possible, right?
Yeah, I
Um,
think there's a lot of that which is part of the American culture. It, in my experience, is less of a thing over here in the UK. This whole idea of being an alpha male and having the latest, the car, the house, and all this
right.
stuff, and that's the only measure of success that you can have. That seems to be very big in American culture in particular.
Mhm.
It's not something I necessarily noticed as much over here. And a lot, obviously, all these podcasts that we're talking about, although Pearl is actually based in the UK, although she's an American herself,
Right.
um, it's all American, so it's all being spoken about from the American perspective. And it's funny because I've been described by somebody I know, a female MRA, as being one of the most alpha men she's ever met. And one of my ex-wife's friends, I think it was, described me as a manly man, whatever that
Right,
means.
right.
Um, and I just thought, what, eh? No, I'm not. I'm whatever you think that means, it's not me.
Right. Yeah, it's elusive. I mean,
Yeah.
that condition, is, I guess, and I've had the same experience. I've been told that myself, but from their perspective, it's got this sense of permanence to it. This
Yeah.
sense of um, that I am that we are that way intentionally, and for the end of being uh, alpha, of being um, uh, masculinely developed, I guess. And it's like, guys like you and us, like we shamble through life doing the best we can,
Mm,
and we've got a desire for material success and some sense of status, in our society, our community, what have you. But that's not the goal for us, you know. And like I said, some of that comes from the fact that for guys like you and I, we were shown either by good example or terrible example, the value of the kinds of virtues that are entirely foreign, and unheard of
mm,
to the like I say, like the young men and young women I talk to, when I start talking about humility and loyalty and persistence and
mm,
patience and regard, right? Tolerance, and like when I try to explain that to them, the old expression, these virtues have their own reward, is actually a cliche because it's never not been true.
mm.
These things serve guys like you and I,
Yeah.
but that's because, you know, we had a shot at it. These guys don't, I mean, except if they try to take them on all on their own, because the systems the environment that they live in, you know, won't allow them that,
Mm,
except with a struggle,
mm,
and their families have abandoned those ideas, right, in favor of, like I said, material success and status for its own sake, as if,
yeah.
as if somehow those things solve all your problems. And when I hear from materially successful and, high status guys that they're, disillusioned, frustrated, and resentful in their own life, I just point to that and say, this is the end point of what you're shooting for.
Yeah.
And if you don't add those values to it, there is no place else you're going to end up. you
Yeah.
know
See,
it will happen.
status for me is, or being, or having a high status in life is, do the people around me respect me?
Right,
Have I done enough
right,
to earn the respect of a 62-year-old recovering addict who has seen the shittier side of life, lives 5,000 miles away from me? Have I done enough to earn that man's respect?
right.
Have I done enough to earn the respect of my peers when I'm at
Mhm.
work?
Right,
Have
right,
I done enough to earn the respect of my children's friends? Not just because I'm an adult, but because I'm a person worthy of their respect.
right,
Does
right.
my attempt to connect with them through humor, for example, because I do like to have a laugh and a joke with particularly my son's friends. I don't really know any of my daughter's friends, but
Yeah,
with my son's have I done enough to earn their respect? That's a sign of high status, I think, or high
Right. Yeah.
value. That
Yeah.
that is a value worth chasing, I think, is having the respect of people around you through your actions and your words. You know, it's I had a big thing at work a few months back over the truck I was driving. It was a bag of bolts, and they
Mhm.
put me in this 22 plate, so 2022 model.
Mhm.
And my thing to them was, I don't care what it is I'm driving or how old it is, just give me something decent that I can rely on. And they've put me in what they have. I don't necessarily care about the plate on the front and rear of the truck. I don't
Yeah.
particularly care that it's got a TV in it and a light bar on the top, which you flick the switch and it blinds everyone for 5 miles in front of you.
Right.
It's nice, don't get me wrong. It's nice to drive around in something like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, my own car, I would love to have, for example, an Aston Martin or a Lamborghini or a Ferrari, but I haven't got any of those. I've got an 18-year-old Saab, which I absolutely love. I love driving around in it. It's one of the
Yeah.
best looking cars on the road for its
Yeah.
class.
Yeah.
Absolutely stunning piece of kit.
Yeah. They do
And
look good. Yours looks good.
yeah, it does. It's a nice looking car. Um, and it's one of those ones I when it's a good looking car when you're walking away from it, you turn around and you go, yeah, that's mine. And it's not gonna. No girl's gonna look at that and go, "For I want to get with him.
Right.
Look what he's running around in," and stuff like
Right.
that. So I'm not interested in chasing that kind of stuff anyway. I never really
Right.
have been. It's nice to have nice things. I wear a watch. I've got a bracelet that I wear. I've got a necklace that I wear. They're all very, very nice. I
Mm.
like having them.
Yeah.
It's not something I had for many, many years. But again, this is all stuff that's happened in the last few years. I'm 40 years old, for goodness sake.
Right.
I'm fast staring down the barrel of being 41, and I'm only just now getting these things. And
Right.
so, these podcasts and stuff, they put a lot of pressure on the younger guys to go out and get these things. It's like going down the gym. Oh, you should go down the gym every day.
Right.
And these podcasts, the YouTube channels, and everything else that claim to be red pill, all they're basically doing is teaching men, young men, how to make themselves better for women.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
it's not red pill at all. It's completely blue pill, in fact.
Yeah.
How
Very
to make it,
gynocentric.
how to make yourself a better prospect for a woman, not
Right.
making yourself a better prospect for you.
Right.
You
And
know,
worst of all, is how to make yourself better to that end, in the environment after just accepting the unacceptable environment that you're in,
Mm,
rather than trying to, look for ways to change that environment. I mean, and
yeah,
again, that takes us back into the dry and difficult part of this, because it is that, I mean, neither one of us and nobody in our cohort is ever going to promise young men or young women a can't miss deal,
mm,
that is just a checklist of, stuff to do, right?
hmm
And that it does make it hard to sell, but of course we're not interested in selling it. I mean, we're
mm,
not here saying, sign up for my seminar and buy my book,
yeah,
right? What we're saying is that um any of those seminars and any of those books are a means to an end, but not for you. you
yeah,
know it's a big club and you're not in it,
yeah,
right? And you won't ever be. you know.
Mm.
And of course, you know, a young fella trying to get his legs under him and figure out, you know, what to do and how to get his really, you know, let's face it, uncomfortable and difficult to ignore impulses and imperatives, how to get them met,
Mm.
you know. I mean, I remember being that age, you know, I was a
Yeah.
mess.
Mm.
But then again, you know, I mean, I would have been a mess anyway, even under pretty good conditions. So,
Yeah.
you know, I'm always careful not to say, you know, not to just say, well, you know, I eventually figured it out, so, you know, you have to also. That's that's a bad look coming from somebody like me, you
Yeah.
know. I yeah, sure, I figured it out, you know, and that's nice. Congratulations to me, you know, but at what cost, you know?
Yeah.
Never mind my own life, you know, how many lives did I interfere with or even ruin along the way?
Mm.
You know, and you know, some of the people out there that are, you know, bitter and suspicious of me have good reason to be. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, some of them know, you know, but a few of them, yeah, you know,
Mm.
I have negatively impacted lives in a way that it is impossible for me to directly make up for.
Yeah.
You know, I just got to live with that, right?
Yeah.
And you know, for the young fella, and frankly, you know, more than ever, the young woman, you know, the object of the game, you know, is to make sure, or as sure as possible, you know, that they, forgive the expression, don't make the same mistakes I do or I did, you
Yeah.
know. And like, you know, I mean, you haven't led a perfect life and you did the best you could under the conditions you were given. But
Mm.
imagine what your life would be like if, you know, as the old expression, if you only knew then what you know now,
Yeah.
you know.
I wouldn't have done some of the things I've done, that's for sure.
Right.
Well, if you see, you say that, and then you think, well, no, actually, because you said it on a previous podcast, if you hadn't have been through the things you have, you might have just ended up being an insufferable jerk.
Yeah.
And you don't
Yeah. I
want to
mean,
be that.
right. Even that is the other side of that coin. I can't even guarantee anybody, if I knew then what I know now, you know, if these things that happened to me hadn't happened, you know, if I would have been a good guy at all, right?
Mm.
I still could have ended up being a complete butt. but but I mean, just playing the percentages, you know,
Mm.
it's likely that I wouldn't have been, you
Yeah.
know. And and when it comes to, you know, the millions of young men and the millions of young women out there looking for, you know, looking for a real answer under under conditions that are more, let's be honest about it, more difficult than the ones you and I faced, you know, when it comes to that, you got to play the percentages, you know,
Yeah.
you've got to look at you have to look at the picture big enough so that you can say, you know, this hard way, right? And this, you know, more difficult path is not going to work for everyone, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike our, the topic of today, you know, these can't miss deal people, you know, we're not promising anybody any kind of a rose garden or
No.
any kind of, you know, easy breezy checklist to just run through and then everything's going to be okay,
Mm.
you know, because like I said, you know, at least for me, like I could actually do that, you know,
Yeah.
I could actually cobble together some kind of a, you know, can't miss deal, you know, get out there and get yours type program. But I would have to start lying to everybody all the time. And because of some of the problems that, you know, are insurmountable for me, I could only do it for a little while and then I'd be dead.
Yeah.
You
It's
know?
so, some of these red pillars and these pickup artist types that have got these massive YouTube
Mm.
followings and stuff, they've been found out to be nothing more than frauds. There was one
Right.
of them who was going on about, don't marry a single mother and all this.
Hmm.
And he's in a
Right.
relationship with a single mum who's a reformed drug addict or something
Yeah.
completely insane like that. It's like,
Right.
if you're gonna BS, admit you're BSing. Fresh and Fit a year or more ago got
Yeah.
called out by Aber and Preach
Right.
because they were going on about this thing of burning desire from a woman
Hmm.
and not paying a woman for sex and all this sort of stuff. And it turns out one of them actually was paying a woman for sex or was paying
Right.
women for sex.
Right. Right.
It's like these
And
half these guys are absolute charlatans, to be quite honest with you.
right.
And
But
what?
they're the thing is that they're the kind of charlatans, who have an internal uh constitution, or an internal life, um so that they can't stop lying,
Mm,
okay, until, and sometimes even after, um the everyone else calls it out.
yeah,
But for somebody like yourself or me, or many in our cohort, right? Um, all the damage would be done, and all of the consequences would be paid long before anybody found out about it,
yeah,
you know, because we just can't live that way,
no,
and it's like, this is this when you hear me say, there's a cost to everything, right?
mm,
You know, having that kind of a personality, comes at a cost. What it
yeah,
means is certain things that are available to those people are never going to be available to us. We
yeah,
will never be able to, you know, purposely defraud, right?
mm,
And purposely swindle, and, like, lie to large groups of people, right?
yeah,
We'll never get away with it, and it doesn't have anything to do with, lack of talent at covering it up. It
yeah.
has to do with the fact that we just can't live that way.
Yeah,
Um,
and some of the women that are doing these podcasts and what have you, they're either divorcees or they've never had a decent long-term relationship, and they're
mhm.
out here giving relationship advice. So
Right,
really, what do you
right,
know?
right.
You know,
And
your marriage is you're either a failure
right,
and you can't say, look, I'm a failure. These are the mistakes I made. Don't do these things because
yeah,
it will cost you your relationships,
right,
or they cannot hold down a decent long-term relationship. And
right.
I mean, I wouldn't advise anyone getting into a relationship anyway at the moment, man or woman. The,
Yeah,
the
I mean,
things are too much of a mess. But
especially under these conditions, even if you
yeah,
lead by saying, and I do, you know, lead by saying, don't make the same mistakes I did, because here's what it did to me,
yeah,
but not only do they not do that, but, it's like that old expression, uh, they're coaching runners in a race they've either already lost or that they never ran.
yeah,
And it's like, if you intend to coach, advise, mentor, whatever you want to influence people, out of your own failure, make sure everybody understands that you're delivering, this mentorship, this influence, out of the consequences of your own failure,
yeah,
and be specific about it.
mm,
Say, here is what I failed to do, or
yeah,
or here is what I did that I shouldn't have done,
Yeah.
just don't do that, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
And
spend a lot of time saying, explaining that to people when they get the idea that I know what I'm doing. It's like, well, to some degree, yeah, out of my own experience, but here's my experience,
yeah.
and here are my failures. Here are the
Yeah.
places where I failed to do what I ought to have done, or here's what I did, what I should not have done.
Yeah.
And here's what it cost. Right.
Yeah. And I would
And
say that if you are looking at getting into a relationship, you know, don't just go looking for the person who looks the prettiest. Don't go looking for the Lamborghini or the Ferrari. You know, go
right.
go looking for the old banger. It's not quite what I want to go with. But go for the one that is the most compatible with you.
Right. Right.
You know,
Uh,
my ex-wife and I were not compatible at all.
yeah.
She
Yeah.
tried me in ways that I don't think anyone else has ever or will ever do again. Whereas my partner just doesn't do that.
Right.
I don't think I've had an angry word with my partner in the years that we've been together.
Right.
Um, and it's not about, ladies, look, it's not about how much money he has, how tall he is, what he's got between his legs. Guys, it's not about how many men she slept with. It's about how compatible you are as people.
Right.
Do you have the same kind of worldview? Do you look at things the same way?
Mhm.
Would you Can you agree on a way to raise your children if you get that far?
Right. Right.
Are you of the same mind when it comes to money and live and running your lives as a couple? You know, there's
Right.
ladies, do you understand that when he goes out to work 70 hours per week, it's not for his own good.
Right.
He's trying to you know, keep a roof over your heads, food in your bellies, and clothes on your back.
Right.
Guys, do you understand when she turns around and says she's not interested in being intimate? It's not necessarily a slight on you. It's a case of she's tired from looking after the kids, the home, and everything else.
Right.
You know,
Right.
can you deal with those things? Relationships are it's a old trope, isn't it? The relationships are very much a give and take. You know,
Sure.
the one thing, and I do agree a lot when these types of people are addressing women about talking about being in a relationship with a man. Can you bring him peace? Because ultimately, I'm sure you'd agree with me, Taz. That's all you really want. You want to leave the war zone outside the front door, outside the front door.
Yeah.
You don't want to
Yeah.
bring it inside with you.
Yeah.
When I
Yeah.
will,
Absolutely. I want, well, like I tell people who question, my singlehood, right?
Mhm,
At the expense of this hypothetical woman out there, who's a perfect match for me, who's also alone,
mhm,
I said, well, okay, I fully concede, that she probably exists somewhere. But here's the
mhm,
thing, that um the standards that I do have, are so high that very few of just a small handful of women even meet those standards, right? And many of them fall short of one standard, which is
mm,
insurmountable because of the laws of nature. And they're like, what do you mean? Well, a lot of the women that I see out there, that actually do have it right, they're below the age of 50, right?
Hmm.
And that's kind of not negotiable for me.
Yeah.
That maybe, I'm being too hard, but I'm 62 years old,
Yeah.
and there are a lot of reasons that I could enumerate here, but I won't, for why that's kind of a hard floor for me. But I say,
Yeah.
even that aside, right? The standard is, and it goes to this concept of peace, right?
Mm.
This person would have to be committed, you know, um, just as much as I am, right, to fixing this problem and making an end of it, right?
Mm.
And I would need to be able to prove that to myself independently of anything that she says to me, right?
Mm.
And I mean, we're talking, at minimum a year, of both online and real life activism, in our movement.
Mm.
A year is a long time,
Yeah.
even for a 50-year-old woman. If she has children at that age, they've probably grown or almost,
Yeah.
so that's not a concern. Um, the idea of her body count at that point is an absurdity, you know. I really don't have a reason to worry about that, you
Yeah.
know. Um, and as far as looks go, like I said, by that time, you know, whatever has become less than conventionally attractive has been that way for a while. And, that means a lot to me, right?
Hmm.
Because at the end of the day, just like you just said, there's an old trope about something called the trouble tree.
Mm.
It's a man who's, married for decades to his wife, and they have a happy home and a good life. And of course, everybody asks the guy, how do you do it? He says, I come home from work and I work in this, like, grind job that's really difficult and just high profile enough to put a lot of stress on me every day, et cetera, et
Mm.
cetera. There's a tree outside the front door of the house. He says, I stop in front of it and, I take off all my troubles and all my stresses and I hang them on the tree before I go
Mm.
inside.
Hmm.
And so when I go inside, I am at peace and I can bring that peace with me.
Mm.
But here in 2023, that trouble tree, it has to be occupied not only by my own troubles and stresses, but by hers. You
Mm.
know, someone with a desire to leave the nightmare outside just as much as me,
Hmm.
and like for her own reasons. It's like not just because I said so, and not just because, I'm she wants me to be her man.
Mm.
I want her to be just as dedicated to peace and harmony, and all these, like, hokey things after the door gets shut. That's what I want, right? And I want that to be what she wants too, like, and be willing to sacrifice for it.
Yeah.
Right now, even in my age cohort, very difficult to find a woman like that.
Yeah.
It's unfair, and it's unfair to me too. But I
Mm.
also tell people that, who challenge me that, am I just do I just not want, a partner, a life partner? In my case, it would be a wife, you know.
Mm.
But obviously, for one thing, having a wife means that I'm bringing that magic gun back into the room,
Yeah.
that I can never use, but she can anytime she wants to, you know. But beyond that, I tell them, that would make me a more whole human being, right?
Mm.
That type of partnership would make me a better man. I'll just go ahead and say it, right? And uh, it would allow me to heal in ways that without it, I'm pretty sure I never will, that I will just live with it, but I said, under current conditions, between the two, having all that or not, we've created a world where not having it is the safer and more honest option.
Yeah. The funny thing is when I have trouble with my ex-wife, I just ring my
Really?
partner. Yeah, I just ring my partner,
Mm.
and just hearing her voice is calming.
Right.
Believe it or not, I'm pumping the girls' tires up here well and truly.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know if she makes me a better person as such. I'm certainly an awful lot calmer with her, and a hell of a lot calmer.
Yeah.
But I've also got someone who I've got her support,
Right.
and that is just so important. Yeah, if we give anyone sort of relationship advice, is be supportive of one another,
Mhm.
and you know, ladies especially, be supportive of your man, because he will go through the fires of hell for you if you do.
Right. Right.
For
And,
as bad as that sound as somebody who advocates for men, I know what us guys are like.
yeah. And, it wouldn't be like the desire to go through the fires of hell, for your partner. It wouldn't come from, well, ideally, and I'm sure in your case, it doesn't come only because it doesn't come out of fear of, disappointing or endangering your relationship with her. It just comes.
Yeah, I've
It came with the outfit, right?
yeah,
And
I've got I've got I wouldn't say I'm fearless in this relationship, as I don't have those fears or those concerns,
right.
because she has proven that I don't need to have those fears. There's this trope in this red pill community about men should never show their emotions to women. This is why I think this is a mainly an American thing,
Mm,
because although my ex-wife was never able to deal with me expressing emotions,
mm,
um, there are women out there that are more than capable of dealing with it. I've told the story about the night or the day my mum died, and
yeah. Yeah.
my partner had her own difficulties because of sort of the situation.
Hmm.
But she was there when I needed it, and she's never held it against me. It's not
Right.
been a case of remember that day you cried your eyes out. Um, there have been situations that have come up through work. There's some stuff with work I don't tell her about because it upset her too much.
Mm,
Um, but I've said things to her
yeah.
about work, like generally when I'm home, not when I'm away. She'd have
Right.
kittens. She wouldn't sleep for a week. Um, oh, she wouldn't. If
Yeah.
I said to her, I had a near miss today and it's like Tuesday, she wouldn't sleep until I was back home.
Right.
Um, but any fears that she has, she tends to keep to herself
Yeah.
unless it's so overwhelming for her that she needs to tell me what she's afraid of
Right.
when it comes to me or the relationship or anything else.
Right.
Poor girl tonight, love her. She's spent most of the day cooking with my daughter. Is
Hmm.
what they tend to do. So
Yeah.
she's absolutely knackered. She's gone to bed. Love her.
Mhm.
just let her rest.
Right.
So yeah, to some degree, I've got I wouldn't say the perfect relationship. I've got a very, very good relationship. And, she doesn't care if I get upset and cry or, I don't get
Right.
mocked for it.
Right.
We have a good match in terms of our sense of humor.
Hmm.
I've started calling her wifey or should have been wife or and stuff like that, and she's called me weirdo. We agreed a lot. We agreed a long time ago that marriage is not an option. We're not
Yeah.
getting married.
Right.
So and this is what happens. See, when you get into a relationship with someone who's a match for you, and I think I've probably spoken before about the way I have her support when it comes to my two children.
Yeah.
If I have to discipline them for whatever reason, there's none of this. Well, you went in too hard, or you didn't go in
Yeah.
hard enough. Rah 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 rah. It's
Right.
okay. You've made the obviously they're your children.
Yeah.
She understands it's not necessarily her place to discipline my children, but
Hmm.
it's her place to support me in disciplining my children.
Yeah.
And so, say for example, I've had to tell one of the kids off about something. They'll come over
Hmm.
at the weekend, and it might be a case of no, you're not having the PlayStation all day today. You've got to sit down and do some schoolwork. Once you've once you've done your schoolwork, then you can go on the PlayStation rather than yeah, even if it's something that's not going to be in for 2 weeks. It's like no, you can sit down and do that instead.
Hmm.
You your dad's had to ring your bell for you because you've misbehaved. Therefore, you don't get nice things when you're over here.
Right.
And like
Right.
my daughter really enjoys cooking with my
Hmm.
partner.
Hmm.
And there was one occasion I gave my daughter an ear aching because she'd been rude to her mum, and my partner said, "Well, no, you're not doing cooking today
Yeah.
because you've had to be given a telling off."
Right.
And
Right.
it's like, oh God, how nice is it to have that kind of support?
Yeah. And
And
like I
that's
say, like
when you're
the ability to keep it up,
mm,
and your ability to keep it up
mm,
is, you can always tell that, what you do for her and what she does for you, even these things, are not being done out of fear, right?
mm,
She doesn't back up your disciplining of your daughter or your disciplining of your son because she's afraid that if she doesn't, you'll take a powder.
mm,
It's just because, just like you, there's a desire there to do that which is right, not only for yourselves, but also for these kids,
yeah,
and like I say, that you can hang on to. Anybody
yeah,
can do like difficult and I guess, sacrificial type things for a while out of fear of not doing them,
mm,
but you have you don't have a hope in hell of being able to keep it up for good. It just doesn't work that way. Um, when you were talking, I was thinking about like I said, the kinds of questions that, and the kinds of challenges that I get from my own situation. And really, it's like I said, uh, the desire, I guess, and the commitment, to either have those kinds of things, to have that kind of relationship or not to have one. And, one of the reasons I say it that way and tell people that, so, it's like, look, I already tried to do it, out of desperation, right? I already tried to have a marriage, that, or tried to maintain a marriage out of fear of losing it. The one thing I can tell you for sure is I lost it. It's gone now, right? And that relationship will never come back, right? And I might be an extreme example, and fair enough, but as a trend, I like I said, I want to be able to live with someone and partner with someone, and connect with someone on the basis that I know, they want what I want, right? And I know that, they're willing to do what it takes to get it, right? Again, for her own reasons,
Yeah.
not just because of me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the same true for me. If if I were to, sacrifice those commitments in favor of having a relationship, I can list off a dozen different things, about that would cause that relationship to fail, right?
Mm.
In pretty short order,
Mm.
um, to everyone's detriment, and very few ways that I could, reasonably expect it to succeed, right?
Yeah.
And, then, like I say, I have seen what happens when, what happens to myself, obviously, but what happens to the other person, when I commit to a relationship under those conditions. It's not good. It's really, really bad for everybody.
Mm.
You know?
One thing about being in a relationship, particularly a marriage that fails, is you're not afraid of it happening again.
Right.
I don't know if that's true for you. And I made the
Um,
comment in Discord
mhm,
yesterday. If this relationship ended tomorrow,
mhm.
I would just go my own way.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Um,
wouldn't. I wouldn't give it a second thought.
right. And for me, it's not a fear of it happening again, but instead, kind of a sense, and I don't want to sound pompous, but, I have a sense of honor about it,
Mm.
that what I had for, a long time, right?
Mm.
And I absolutely played my part in that relationship failing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, but as I said, I consider it part of the little promise I made to myself, a long time ago now, that I was going to just do things differently, you know.
Mm.
Um, and one of them, like I said, was that I'm going to do the right thing for the sake of my own life,
Mm.
and it's not going to involve just fear of hurting someone else, and it's not going to just involve looking, bad or being humiliated, because
Mm.
that's right where I was. I mean, I did what I did out of fear, right? And I ended up humiliated, and bereft and alone and terrified, the whole thing. Said, so, rule job number one is make damn sure I don't ever do that again. And
Mm.
if that means, that that I have to stay alone, so be it. I
Mm.
mean, I'll be alone, I'll be alive,
Yeah.
and I'll have, the sense of purpose, right? That I lacked before, and at the time I really felt like it was a crapshoot. I was like, I don't even know, I don't even think this is necessarily going to work, but I'm going to do it anyway, just because
Mm.
it's the one thing I never tried before.
Mm.
you know and sure enough, at least for, next month coming on 8 years, it's been okay.
Yeah.
you know it's like the old, I don't know if you ever watched the TV series Seinfeld, but one of the characters, a guy named George Costanza, was just kept, and throughout the series he was just this obvious, kind of schmuck. I mean,
Mm.
the It just kept doing, you know, the wrong things for the wrong reasons and was very self-absorbed, etc. So one day he decided to be opposite George, you know, and not be afraid and, you know, just walk up to the attractive woman, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that was a real kind of, you know, shallow and humorous version of what I went through, you know.
Mm.
So, you know, whatever hell it was I was doing before, I'm just gonna not do it. If that means I do nothing, so be it, you
Yeah.
know. But if there's things I can find to do that are not that, I'll just do them. I don't know if it'll
Mm.
work or not, you know, and I don't know if in a year, told people, I said, a year from now, I don't know if I'm even gonna be here, you know.
Mm.
And I don't know if I'm not gonna, you know, pick up a drink again. I don't know if I'm gonna want to hang myself or jump under a train. I don't know. And I'm not going
Mm.
to make that promise, you know, but I
Mm.
will promise that the things that got me to those places, you know, are things that I'm just going to not do anymore.
Mm.
And the hypothetical partner that I'm looking for, you know, for whatever reason, I mean, it doesn't have to be that, you know, drastic and everything, but the kind of person that, you know, has looked at how things have been up until recently, you know, able to take their own accounting, you know, for their own part to play in it
Mm.
without any input from me or anybody else and say, I'm going to just not do that crap anymore.
Yeah.
Because that's the kind of person, as you mentioned, you know, that's willing to bring peace, you know, that's willing to back your play when it comes to your kids, that's willing to, you know, see you when you are weak, right?
Mm.
You know, I mean, we reframed that term by saying vulnerable or, you know, emotionally expressive. I
Mm-hmm.
want someone to be able to sit on the other side of the couch from me and watch me be weak
Mm.
and get over it,
Yeah.
you know. Because if you
Would
can't do that, then I ain't the guy, you
yeah.
know,
Wouldn't it be nice?
right?
Wouldn't it be
Uh,
nice if we could all have that rather than just getting embarrassingly lucky?
I know. I mean, you know, that kind of luck, um, it's like I don't even believe in that kind of luck, even for the ones that enjoy it.
Mm.
Because when they're pressed hard enough, you know, there's still this like overwhelming air of disappointment, you know, and frustration with their own life because it was all the result of good fortune, you know, that leaves them without a sense of accomplishment, you know.
Mm.
Um, I mean, I have little, and you know, I kind of like it that way, you know, and I live simply, right, you know. But what I have in these few years, you know, and I don't mean material possessions because I don't have very many of those, but
Mm.
when it comes to, you know, what I have inside, um, I put it all there myself, you know.
Yeah.
I had a lot of help and a lot of support and, you know, a lot of just being shown which things to put there, you know, my sponsor and my therapist and my friends, you know, every day you guys all show me things that, you know, I realize I have a desire for,
Mm.
you know, different ways to express character, you know, and different ways to like I say, you know, exercise virtue for its own sake, you know, because it helped because you know, this is like breathing for me, you know.
Mm.
It's like I could stop doing it anytime I want, but not for very long, you
Yeah.
know. And you know, like I said, I am being shown these things because I've gone to look for them, you
Mm.
know. But at the end of the day, the only one that's ever going to be able to take them is me.
Yeah.
Mm. Just like I took all the other crap, you know. I took all that delusion and materialism and checklists and this, that, and the other thing. I took them on. Nobody held a gun to my head,
Yeah.
right? So, I can't say it's 100% not my fault. I mean, sure, a lot of the worst of it happened before I had any choice at all,
Mm.
but as time went on, I certainly had a choice, to replace it. I
Mm.
just didn't, you know.
Yeah.
But now I do.
Mm.
You know. This is,
Yeah.
like this is people ask me how I can forgive, some of the people from my past. Like that's how, you know.
Well, because
By
my response is because they've had to forgive me.
exactly. I mean, some people, right, that, some people on that list, and it's long,
Mm.
that that I've had to forgive. It's a very rare thing in my experience, but there have been some people who have forgiven me,
Mm.
right? And because of that, for one thing, that's how you learn that it's even possible,
Mm.
right? I mean, a lot of these things, I didn't do them, and I take responsibility for that, but a lot of it was just that I didn't believe, I didn't
Mm.
believe in um, developing and valuing my little internal life.
Mm.
I would, like most people, I was just convinced that, you know, I am what I am because of stuff I have, you
Mm.
know, and I just found out that was kind of a lie, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
just don't do that no more.
Yeah.
But anyway, circling back to, our topic is all of the things that you and I have just been talking about, are the detailed and precise and frankly, kind of boring for a young person, details, of a real solution to, what we see as a real problem,
Mm.
right? But to like package all of that up in a pretty pink bow, and make it palatable in 2023, in competition with, say, these people that what they're doing is just delivering a can't miss deal.
Mm.
Um, but whoever comes up with the talent and the tools to make that, a saleable item, I'll buy him dinner, because it's not
Yeah.
me,
It's not really me either, to
No,
be honest.
no. So to any and all listening out there, if you have a solution to that problem, hit me up or hit us up in the comments.
Yeah.
Because I know I don't. I mean,
No.
I can detail it and I can make it clear enough for really anybody,
Mm.
but can I make it uh, can I make it as attractive as, like I say, lifestyle and um uh sexual and relationship conquest, and pretty stuff to look at that these other people sell? No, that I can't do. I
No.
can't, you know. And that's
But
okay. I
all
don't have to.
no. What we can do is make it as detailed as possible and not just give you the little sound bites.
Right,
You go to them for the sound bite, you come to us for the nitty gritty.
right. Yeah, for the
That's what,
essay.
yeah. That's what this is the long form of the conversations they're having. The
Right.
difference is we're not trying to. This isn't about a gotcha.
No.
We're not. We haven't got some 19-year-old little little girl.
Mm.
I don't necessarily mean that in a sort of derogatory term, but as
Right,
in this is someone who hasn't experienced anything of life
right,
really.
Right.
and he's very, very inexperienced with life.
Right.
Has barely learned, barely potty trained. Mum's milk still dripping off their chin.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
And trying to figure all this out. Our
yeah,
colleague, the tall lady. It's so easy for guys like you and me to point to her and say, "Do this." You
hmm
know, and that's true. I mean, she is definitely a proof of the concept. You know,
mm,
and some of the younger men in our movement, same thing. We can point to them and say this can be done. You
yeah,
know, I mean, and it can be done. Uh, Joyously, right, and earnestly. It's these things make tall lady happy.
mm,
And these young fellows like Mao from the Discord channel. They're not doing it because they said so.
mm,
I mean, they're honestly doing it because it makes them happy, right?
mm,
And gives them something to hold on to,
mm.
and put up with the BS, right? Because the two of them have put up with a lot of BS here just lately. you know
Yes, I've put up with some of it myself.
yeah, me too. But like as I say, from our perspective, it hits a whole lot different than it does for them.
Yeah,
And the like I say, the respect, and regard for them that comes from you and I is
mm,
one thing. But the fact that they don't just sit back and say I've done enough,
yeah,
or I don't want to do anymore.
mm,
That's how you kind of know. These are the kind of very young people, right, that if all of this is going to be changed and all of this is going to be resolved, it will be because of young people like them.
yeah. I did actually, slight off-topic story. I did actually give the tall lady a little bit of relationship advice when she was over visiting the UK.
Mhm.
She's got a gentleman friend that she's rather keen on, and the two of them haven't managed to actually sort it out yet.
Right.
So my comment to her was, "Oh, for goodness sake, just get it over and done with, will you? Stop, stop. If the thing is mutual, then stop messing about
Right.
and dancing around the subject, and just get on with it.
Yeah. Just
The two of you."
close your eyes, hold your nose, and jump.
Yeah, exactly.
And if there's uh like a human nature part of all this, a lot of it is things like that. I mean,
Mm,
there is no modern alternative to not mucking about,
yeah,
and allowing, I don't know, God, I don't want to get all, new agey, but allowing it to happen,
yeah,
and not fearing like the consequences of it.
yeah.
you know Now, I'm one to talk because as of yet, I freely admit, uh, I have not done that,
Mm,
but I am definitely open to it. You
yeah.
that's, I think, that's what allows me, to stand my ground and never be bitter, you know,
Mm,
stand my ground as me without making a bunch of enemies, or adversaries, right?
yeah.
um because I can always say, it is just me, right?
Mm,
I mean, it is just the boundaries, as my other cohort likes to emphasize. It is only my boundary. It's not something that I can like lay off on somebody else,
mm,
right? And make it their fault, you know. And the same is true for the tall lady. I mean, I've spoken to her a lot about it a little bit, and it's one of those things where you have to tell them, like, you what you're nervous about, and what you're like anxious about is something to be nervous and anxious about,
Yeah.
right? It just is, and it always has been, it always will be, as long as all we are is people. But at the same time, the alternative, to that courage is fear, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the worst thing about fear is it kind of lives for itself. If you become afraid, it's not that easy to just not be afraid anymore.
Yeah.
And things follow you. I mean, it's like, if it if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
And you will definitely not be the first person that ever happened to. But at the same time, there's a growing, and this kind of goes all the way back to inceldom. The worst thing about inceldom is that the worst of them, and most of them, haven't just walked away, and they haven't just walked away out of fear. They've constructed a worldview where that fear can't be challenged. I tell people they live in a glass jar, right? They're not coming out, and they will never let anybody else in.
Yeah. I think,
and they're damned. I mean, that's a little taste of hell.
yeah, that's a conversation for another podcast. I think
Yeah,
incels and
for
the
sure.
difference between incels and MGTOWs, because there is a significant difference.
Sure. I mean,
Yeah.
they each have their own set of failings, and they're both choking on the pills they claim to take, but they are very different things.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Exactly.
yeah. I don't know, DeadDuck, if you have any final words, I think I'm all talked out.
I I think I would just say treat these so-called red pill podcasts as the same as a drama series on HBO or ITV or something. They're just entertainment. Do not take them seriously.
Yeah.
Um, the people in charge of them, yes, they're charismatic, probably more attractive than you and I physically,
Mm,
but by the same tokens, they are no better than some of the dictators from, shall we say, the early mid 20th century,
right.
who did very, very bad things.
Right.
They're not they're not to be followed.
Right.
They're not looking to make things better. They're just, I think, to a certain degree, covering up their own inadequacies in
Right.
talking down to people that they perceive to be not on their level,
Right.
intellectually, mentally, physically, emotionally,
Right.
physically.
And they found a way to make money at it.
Yeah,
That
they
makes it
have.
that much worse.
Yeah, yeah. Also don't look to people like myself and Taz, because at the end of the day, we've screwed up. We don't know, what we're doing with this really. We know where we want to end up,
Yeah.
and at the end of the day, we're just two blokes sat around an imaginary campfire with cold beverages of various types,
Yep.
marshmallows on the end of a stick.
Yep.
Yeah, mushrooms if you want, I suppose. I don't know. And we're just shooting the shit, basically.
Pretty much. Yeah.
That's what this is. It's just two blokes shooting the shit
Yeah.
and trying to put the world to rights. If
Yeah.
and if people like what we do here, great. And sometimes, as we have done this evening, we do get going.
Yeah.
Other times we're able to keep things fairly short, but you know,
Yeah, yeah. If you do like us, give us a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't.
yeah,
And
and all that good
thank you
stuff.
for listening. We're very grateful,
Yeah,
everybody. And Duck, have a good one. I'll see
I'll
you
try
next
to.
week.
Yeah,
See
I'll
you
see you
next
later.
week, if not before. All right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Ta-da.
Bye-bye.